When talking about iconic live-action kids movie franchises, I'm not sure one exists that is more iconic than Spy Kids. Starting in 2001, Spy Kids follows the adventures of Junie and Carmen, the children of super spies Ingrid and Gregorio Cortez, as they go on top-secret missions and do cool spy stuff. First, we have the original 3 movies, which all became box office hits. Then there was a 4th one years later in the same continuity with Jessica Alba, Joel McHale, and Girl Before She Met World. That one, despite being the poorest performing movie in the franchise, still ended up turning in a profit thanks to its insanely low budget. And then there was this animated series they made that I'm not sure anyone actually cared about, so let's pretend that it doesn't exist for the sake of this video. Spy Kids has proven to be a successful franchise in 2 different decades, so it's not surprising that Robert Rodriguez, the franchise's director and writer and producer and cinematographer and composer, wanted to take another crack at it in the 2020s, this time teaming up with Netflix, the same streaming service where he released his last kids film, We Can Be Heroes. Reboots are a touchy subject nowadays, especially when they're made from things that people associate with their childhood. So, since the new installment into the ever-growing Spy Kids franchise, Spy Kids Armageddon, is out now on Netflix, I, Mr. Nostalgia, decided to give it a quick look-see to figure out if it's another reboot gone wrong, or if it was a step in the right direction to introducing Spy Kids to a whole new generation.
Next, having parents as spies is super awesome, right? But joining the family business? Double awesome! Catch Spy Kids on Disney Channel.
Before I talk about the movie, I'd like to give a brief rundown on my history with the Spy Kids franchise. As a kid, I am sure I saw the first 2 Spy Kids movies at least to some extent because I definitely remember aspects of them. But the one that I have the most connection and I guess nostalgia with is admittedly the 3rd one, which is funny because a lot of people consider that one to be the worst one, at least from the original 3. I had the DVD when I was younger and I used to watch it like all the time, and my DVD came with the 3D glasses too, so I would constantly be wearing them and watching the movies and stuff. It was sick. But at the same time, none of the Spy Kids movies were ever the kind of movies from my childhood that I'd go back and watch, like Sky High or even How to Eat Fried Worms. So I went ahead and watched the first 3 movies, plus the Girl Meets World one, to kind of prepare myself to re-enter the Spy Kids world as an adult. And I'll talk more about my thoughts on those movies later. As for this movie though, unlike the 4th one, this one takes place in an entirely new continuity that has nothing to do with the original franchise. And honestly, it makes sense. Unless a parent went out of their way to show their kids the first 3 Spy Kids films, no child watching this would get any references to them. It is not like how it was for the 2011 film, where the original Spy Kids movies were constantly being aired on Disney Channel back then. Nah, it's just been way too long. It's better to start fresh for a new generation. Even Robert Rodriguez agrees with me. The movie is about the Torres/Tango family.
My dad's last name is Tango and my mom's is Torres.
We have the parents, Nora and Terrence, played by everybody's favorite celebrities, Gina Heebie-Jeebies Rodriguez and Zachary Shazam Levi. The movie also stars Connor Esterson and Evelyn Cargania as the 2 Spy Kids, Tony and Patty. Nora and Terrence serve as the modern-day Antonio Banderas and Carla Gugino, being the parents of 2 kids that have no idea about their secret spy life. But all of that is about to change when the kinda evil billionaire Ray Kingston, who I later realized was a parody of Elon Musk, plans on using his high-tech AR video game High Score to hijack people's minds and force them to do good things. I'm not joking. All of this is capable due to a special spy software that was programmed by and stolen from Terrence, called the Armageddon Code, which allows spies to hack into basically anything that they need to for their missions. When their parents are captured, it is up to Tony and Patty, with the help of the latest and greatest spy tools, to save not only their parents, but the entire world from being controlled and forced to live their lives according to the standards of one Ray Kingston. Now, usually when I cover movies on this channel, I tend to do an entire synopsis of the movie's plot, but when it comes to recently released films, I try to give a much less detailed run through so you can enjoy it on your own, perhaps even with a kid of your own, or your niece or nephew. Or cousin, just a kid, Right off the bat, one of the biggest changes you'll notice is that the older sister, younger brother dynamic of Carmen and Junie is not present in this film. We never really find out how old these kids are supposed to be, but they seem to be pretty close in age. There's one line of dialogue that suggests that they might even be twins, but even if they aren't, it might be safe to assume they're only at most 2 years apart. Now, some might be disappointed in this news, and while I do miss the original dynamic of the kids, I think this one actually works better in the movie's favor if they choose to turn this into another trilogy. One of my issues with Spy Kids is that by the time the trilogy ended, Carmen obviously was not a kid anymore. By choosing to go younger with these kids, it allows for more franchise longevity, which is key when creating movies for kids. And I thought their characters, though not being as strong as Junie and Carmen, were fine. They were polar opposites in this one, with Tony being someone who's known for cheating and deceiving people, and Patty, who was always honest all the time and believes in truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Despite being opposites though, they really don't argue as much as Junie and Carmen, which was a nice change of pace. You can only take bickering for so long. As for the parents, they're okay. Not to say that nobody can top Antonio Banderas as a Spy Kids father, but like, if I did try to top him, I wouldn't start with Zachary Levi. And Gina Rodriguez was just kinda alright. To be fair though, the mom from the original franchise didn't really stick out to me that much either, so I'm pretty sure the uncle had more of an impact on me than her. Their real one, not the fake one. The villain, on the other hand, actually gave like a really sick performance. Like, he was way better than he needed to be. Unfortunately though, they wasted his performance on a very, very mediocre motive. He's not your traditional villain. He thinks that the world is full of terrible, unfair people, so to solve that he wants to force them all to become good by use of his video game and the Armageddon code. And although the big CGI battle at the end was honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a live action kids film, I can't say he's as memorable as Floop and Minion were in the first one. One thing I have seen people point out is how this movie doesn't have the look and silliness of the first three, and while that is true, I had to watch all of the previous Spy Kids back to back in 1 week, and after the third one, my brain desperately needed a break, admittedly. But it's kind of weird though, because I've seen people complain how this movie doesn't look like the previous Rodriguez films, but if it did look like all the other Rodriguez films, then you would be upset about how bad the CGI is. So while I do think things should have looked a tad more cartoonier and more fun, since that's what Robert Rodriguez is known for doing in his movies, I thought what we got on a visual standpoint was fine, though a bit too dark at times. Sure, there's nothing as quirky as giant thumb people or dudes with 3 heads, but I don't think every Spy Kids movie going forward has to look like the old ones. It's fine to experiment with other styles in my opinion. Honestly, I think this one will probably age better than the first 4 because of that. One of the aspects I appreciated about the film was how much they toned down the gross out humor when compared to the 4th one. I mean, that movie was just disgusting. I'm glad this time around they didn't feel the need to rely on poop and fart jokes to make kids laugh. At the same time though, and I mean look, I'm a grown duck at this point, but I don't remember there being too many jokes that stood out. Like, I remember laughing on the first one during my rewatch and at least snickering during the other 2. With this one though, I don't even remember doing that thing where air blows out of my nostrils. But at the same time, this movie is at the very least consistently entertaining. I mean, I don't really recall ever being bored, so I'll take that as a win, I guess. I went in with extremely low expectations while also keeping in mind that I am an adult. This is not meant for me or anyone else that grew up with the original films. It is meant for children that were born after Adventure Time came out. And if you keep those same things in mind and just temporarily let go of that tight mental grip that I know a lot of you have on the original franchise, you might actually have a bit of fun. There's even some callbacks to the original films, like the kids having really long names and having to say them in full when entering a safe house.
Your full name, please.
Patricia Angelita Sorrow Feliz Rayonen Tengo Torres.
Carmen Elizabeth Juanita Ecosca Brava Cortez.
I personally think kids are gonna like this movie. I mean, these are the perfect kind of streaming movies, and I'm actually a bit jealous that kids today get to have easy access to movies like this so they can watch it on loop over and over again immediately after its release. Nothing was worse as a kid than going to the theaters to see a movie and not knowing when you would actually get the chance to see it again, unless obviously you went back to the theaters to see it, which rarely happened for me. Nah fam, you just had to wait until that glorious day months later when you're just chilling, watching Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon and randomly see an advertisement saying that the movie is now available on DVD. Then you'd like run to your parents and you'd be like, can we go to Walmart and buy this DVD? And then they'd be like, no. So you gotta then wait another like 2 or 3 years until it gets played on Cartoon Network or Disney Channel. Might take less if it went to HBO Family. I mean, I actually just came across this promo recently advertising the Disney Channel premiere of The Incredibles. It took 3.5 years for it to finally air on there. Fortunately, my family actually had the DVD for that one. Oh, and we had like the double disc too, where it came with like a different disc that had all the special Sorry, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Spy Kids. Yeah, I think kids are gonna like this one.
We'll be right back with the Disney Channel premiere of Spy Kids. Now let's get back to the Disney Channel premiere of Spy Kids.
So, overall, how is Spy Kids Armageddon? How does it compare to the other 4 Spy Kids films? Does it spit on the legacy of Spy Kids like so many of you think it will? No, I mean, be for real, it's Spy Kids. like yeah, they're fun kids movies, most of them, but they're not exactly peak cinema.
But I gotta keep an eye out for Selena.
And I'm not even trying to write these movies off as just being kids movies, because I've seen some legitimately well-crafted kids films with a lot of heart and thought put into it. I don't put the Spy Kids franchise in the same tier that I do like the Paddington franchise. Have y'all seen Paddington 2? Come on now. But I also recognize, of course, that those movies were trying to be 2 very different things. With the exception of the first Spy Kids, I don't even think the franchise is on par with other kids movies from that era, like Sky High or Bridge to Terabithia or Zathura. I mean, it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure I take How to Eat Fried Worms over the 2nd, 3rd, and definitely 4th one. Not Zoom though. Zoom was hot trash. Not even Ryan Newman from the hit TV show Zeke and Luther could save that one. So let's go over my thoughts on the Spy Kids films before I properly rank this one. Spy Kids 1 is legitimately a good film that has a lot of heart, charm, and clever jokes. It was weird, it was silly, and honestly, a bit ahead of its time. To me, it's the best Spy Kids movie without a doubt, the only one that I'd actually consider going back and rewatching again. 3 out of 5. Spy Kids 2, on the other hand, is literally the coolest movie of all time, at least for the first 20 minutes. Then the actual mission started, and I got really bored, honestly. I'm not a big fan of that one. 2 out of 5. I will say the best part about it though is that little dance that Carmen does during the credits. Like, she was killing this, man. It's like one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Spy Kids 3, as I said before, is the one that I had the most nostalgia for since I had it on DVD, and this one is weird. I don't think it's as boring as Spy Kids 2. Matter of fact, it is rather entertaining, but like, it's only a spy movie for the first 8 minutes, and then it's just Ready Player One. This one has easily aged the worst out of all the other ones, using a 3D gimmick that worked well for its time, but is almost unwatchable when you try to watch it without it, which I didn't think occurred to the studio at the time. I mean, seriously, have you tried to watch this movie in 2D? It just does not work. I will tip my hat to Robert Rodriguez though. I still feel like this movie was ahead of its time. No other children's film looked like that during that time, and it did the whole 90% of the film being green screen thing way before Marvel. You have to wonder if the crew in charge of Ant-Man Quantumania were inspired by this movie. Spy Kids 3 also has like one of the worst third acts of all time, but also one of the coolest. It's so hard to explain. It's a really confusing movie for me. It's half good and like half really cool. I don't know. 2.5 stars out of 5 for that one. Then we have Spy Kids 4, which is flat out one of the worst movies ever made. Just straight up. I mean, I remember thinking to myself, at least it felt more like an actual movie than Spy Kids 3, but that doesn't even matter when it's just horrible. And low-key, my headcanon is that Robert Rodriguez did that on purpose. For those unaware, Harvey Weinstein kind of like forced Robert Rodriguez to make this movie because of some old contract he dug up which stated he needed to make 4 Spy Kids movies instead of just 3. And so because of that, we got this monstrosity. I mean, it's just filled with the absolute grossest and stupidest jokes of all time. Only good things about that movie is that we were able to see Carmen and Junie again, which was nice, and Jessica Alba was kind of cool in it, I guess, but overall, I hate this movie. It's very, very bad. But the reboot, however, it's fine, dude. I mean, it lacks some of the originality and zaniness of the original movies, but for what it's worth, look, y'all might hate me for this, but I honestly think this is the 2nd, maybe 3rd best Spy Kids movie. In terms of pure enjoyment, it's definitely my 2nd. It's fun, it's cute, it's a perfectly fine way to kill an hour and a half if you have to babysit some children or something. 3 out of 5 for me. Like, I went in with really low expectations, and you know, I'm not mad at the result. It's not great by any means, but it wasn't horrible like the 4th one, nor was it boring like the 2nd one, at least to me. One funny thing that I always see people forget whenever movies like this get announced is that companies don't have to ask your permission to reboot things from your childhood. I always see the whole, oh, nobody asked for this complaint. Like, this movie is meant for children. Children are its target audience, and no child actually asks for movies to be made. And even if there were adults asking for a Spy Kids reboot, Netflix wouldn't listen because adults aren't the target audience. They don't need adults watching this movie. They want kids to watch this movie. So just like, let the kids have their fun. I would have ate this up when I was 7. And I'm sure kids today are enjoying this movie just as much as we enjoyed the originals as kids. I see no reason to complain about kids well, wait, that's kind of what my whole channel is about. But you kind of get what I mean though. Nostalgia is always kind of a funny thing because I always see posts like, so glad I grew up with this instead of this. Like, kids are gonna know the difference or even care. This is probably their first time ever hearing about Spy Kids, so if they show interest in the movie, just let them watch it. If this movie goes on to be successful, and I think it will, kids are going to see this as their Spy Kids. And 10 years from now, when the next reboot happens, kids are going to see that as their Spy Kids. And they're going to be like, oh, well, my Spy Kids are better than this generation's Spy Kids. And the process is just going to repeat until we all die. This happens with literally everything, guys. And look, if the Spy Kids trilogy is still one of your favorite trilogies and you could still get just as much enjoyment out of them than you did as a kid, that's absolutely fantastic. I would never try to say your opinion is wrong. These are just simply my views. If you're going to be one of those people that are insistent on the original 3 Spy Kids movies never being topped and anything being made after it is just going to be bad, then just don't watch this movie. It would be a waste of time for you. If you're willing to go in open-minded about it though, and watch this movie through the lenses of a kid, then hey, maybe you'll think it's okay too. You don't have to constantly complain about movies like this being made, especially for a generation that's like 20 years younger than you. Sometimes all you gotta do is be like, hey man, this is my Spy Kids and this is their Spy Kids. Just because this is their Spy Kids doesn't mean it's bad. What I do know for a fact though is that Robert Rodriguez is still really good at making movies that resonate with children, just like he was 20 years ago. His last film, We Can Be Heroes, which I thought was pretty fun as well, was a huge hit for Netflix, and apparently it's getting a sequel. Clearly his movies are resonating with children of today, just like how they were resonating with the children of yesterday. Why assume that he just like got stupid after all of these years all of a sudden and forgot how to make fun kids movies? I mean, be for real now. I don't know. I feel like I explained myself pretty well in this video, but I'll probably still manage to get hate on it somehow, but that's the internet for you. I want to know your thoughts on Spy Kids Armageddon. Are you going to check it out? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. I'm Mr. Nostalgia, and I'm out for now. Peace.